A few times a year, Valve hosts the Steam Next Fest, a week-long digital celebration of upcoming games in the form of piles upon piles of demos. How is anyone supposed to sift through all of this? Welcome to the Next Fest Demo Disc, a curated collection of demos from a variety of genres, art styles, and playstyles, with a focus on games flying under the radar that you're likely to have missed. I've played well over 50 demos over the last week, and I've managed to narrow down 9 of them that I think you need to know about. But that's not all, because this volume includes an additional 11 bonus games, so free up some hard drive space and get that wishlisting finger prepped, cause it's time to boot up the Next Fest Demo Disc. One of my absolute favorite games as a kid was Twisted Metal 2 for the PS1. Being able to drive around these cool cars with the added bonus of late 90s edginess and blowing dudes up just really spoke to me. There's a secret bonus level in the game that I always found really fascinating because of how different it was from any of the others. I'd learn later that this was actually a track plucked directly from another game by the same publisher called Jet Moto. I thought these hovering motocross bikes were extremely cool, but I couldn't help but wish I was blowing up the other riders again. I mention all of this simply to say that Airframe Ultra from developer Video Cult feels eerily laser targeted towards me. A mix of the badass hover bike races of Jet Moto with the tournament of violence that is Twisted Metal. I went into this game having seen nothing but a few seconds of racing gameplay, so I was quite surprised when the demo opened up with a somewhat lengthy off-bike tutorial segment. Lengthy, but necessary, because there's a Kojima level of detail and complexity involved in getting around on foot. And that's before we even catch sight of a single piece of the game's huge arsenal of weaponry. However, I think the slow build-up towards boarding the game's titular airframe was the right call, because once you do finally rev up that anti-gravity engine, all of the weight dragging down your clunky human form evaporates and you just fly. Not to say there isn't any nuance to piloting your airframe. Holding the left trigger pedal to the metal will push you to top speed, though you'll lose a fair bit of control at this point and your engine heats up fast, so it's often best to hold the trigger just a hair away from all the way down, lest you fly off the track. But for the most part, being on an airframe feels like second nature and a sweet reprieve from battling with your clumsy bipedal biker body. Speaking of battling, racing is only half the battle in Airframe Ultra, because between checkpoints, you'll be expected to deframe and duke it out with the other contestants in on-foot death matches. This is where the game's high skill ceiling is most apparent. Trying to remember how to slide, go prone, get up from prone, run and climb your way to a weapon, all while getting blasted by other players in a police helicopter, is almost comically overwhelming. Even once you've got a weapon in hand, good luck trying to figure out how to use it in the heat of the moment. The thing is though, despite getting my ass absolutely beat into dirt, I ended each session not with a sense of frustration, but with a desire to learn more and play better. A good indication that the game is on the enjoyable side of dense. So yeah, I hope you're ready to eat my dust when the full game— Back in Volume 2 of the Next Fest Demo Disc, I broke my own rules a little bit by covering a demo that wasn't technically part of the Next Fest because I was just so taken with it. Now, I wouldn't normally cover a game twice in this series, but I'm going to make an exception for this one because that was my least viewed video ever, and AMYGDALA Prelude from developer Moodlet Journeys is officially part of Next Fest this time with an updated demo, and it more than deserves a second look. Amygdala Prelude tasks the player with the investigation of the McVale mansion on the outskirts of Kingsfield, Australia, in search of their missing professor, Dr. A. Kurnt. If you have even a passing familiarity with the classics of the survival horror genre, you'll know about how this plays out. Searching small but detailed rooms for supplies, puzzle-solving tools, and story-illuminating notes, learning the layout of the mansion, maybe even encountering some creatures along the way. While the fundamentals here aren't especially unique, Amygdala's atmosphere is completely singular, communicated from the moment you open the game by every element of its main menu. The most immediately apparent of which is its oceanic backdrop and hauntingly beautiful score, reminiscent of the works of Angelo Badalamenti. Even just the color of the text here goes a long way to establishing a very specific vibe, as this particular shade of blue shows up constantly in Amygdala. Not only in the HUD and UI elements, but all of the demo's most striking environments make prominent use of it as well. In the way that this shade of orange immediately brings Half-Life to mind, this shade of blue feels like a core piece of Amygdala's identity. Speaking of Half-Life, there's one more element of this menu that immediately struck me, which was the familiar sight of Half-Life 2's options interface. While a game's engine doesn't always leave a large enough footprint for the player to notice much, Valve's Source Engine has a very distinct look and feel to it, and it's immediately perceptible here. Amygdala was made by someone with a lot of love for and knowledge of the Source Engine, and it shows. Perhaps most importantly, as a horror game, Amygdala strikes a delightful balance of bizarre, silly, and genuinely scary. That knocking is just horribly, horribly terrifying. I can't let people see these things that are living in my house. Oh my! It's easy to get a few minutes in and forget the game takes place in Australia, but you'll be reminded before long because holy shit, this game comes with the strongest arachnophobia warning that I can possibly give. That is so scary, dude. Oh, and it just runs away. And it's just gone, it's just gone. I love it. It was honestly hard for me to find footage without spiders because they are absolutely everywhere here. Oh yeah, I forgot we can kick. Oh my god, dude. The fucking spider. I'm reading a note here. Please leave me be. The Amygdala twist here, though, is that, much like in real life, these spiders are completely harmless if you leave them be, which I think is such a strangely cute touch. I think the moment that truly sold me on the game was finally meeting the mysterious Dr. Kurnt for the first time. After reading numerous notes written by the professor, I had a certain image of the man in my head, but I started cackling when I realized just how wrong I was.
You're the one that they've been looking for. Good to see you. One of my best students. Well, former student.
It's not just that he's a fish man, it's that he's such a goober as well. I love this guy.
Through a small trapdoor nowadays. Oh, my food is ready. Ooh, that's hot.
Unfortunately, it turns out that for as much as I think the decision to use the Source Engine is to the game's benefit as a work of art, it may actually be to the game's detriment as a product sold on Steam. Despite previous willingness to loan out their Source Engine, Valve has recently been weird about it with certain projects, Amygdala included. So if anything I've shown you here has interested you, please do check out the game and wishlist it. Not only because I want the people who worked on the game to be paid for their work, but also, selfishly, because I just really want to play this game. I think it's really something special, and I hope it can see the light of day.
I'll see you on the other side, old friend.
There's been kind of a trend in the last few years of games using an in-universe operating system as a presentational style, and it's actually something I'll be talking about in my next mainline video, so I've been playing quite a few games that do this. When I started the demo for Panthalassa from developer MÖRK, I was a little worried I'd already burned myself out on the concept. The OS here is a drab Windows NT-esque affair with a similarly dry robotic analyst, Magellan, who assists you in your tasks of camera operation and underwater probe deployment. These cameras are mostly busted, but after clicking on the one visible object in the second feed, our system is hijacked by a robotic gremlin named Tetra. Who transforms our cold, clinical productivity software into the most Frutiger Aero by way of claymation interface imaginable. Despite the hijacking, Tetra is actually a friendly, if dumb, little guy who transferred our system into a nearby robot body in order to save them from deletion by the strangely advanced systems of the mysterious underwater base that we've found ourselves in. Panthalassa plays out as an interesting combination of traditional point-and-click puzzle solving through interaction with objects in the environment, and an investigational operating system game akin to Hypnospace Outlaw. The interactions between Tetra and Magellan are pretty cute. Magellan is highly knowledgeable and teaches Tetra, and by extension the player, facts about various marine life that can be scanned with a telescope-like apparatus once the power is turned back on. At the same time, Tetra slowly convinces Magellan to loosen up a little. I'm honestly not typically super into point-and-clicks, but Panthalassa won me over by the end, in part because of how great the music and visuals are, but also with how often it was able to subvert my expectations. There's some unexpectedly dark scenes, and I'm very curious to see where it's going with its story in the full game.
Panthalassa.
A genre that I wasn't expecting to see pop up again and again this next fest is the first-person turn-based dungeon crawler. While I played quite a few of these, 3 VERSES³ is almost certainly the most unique of the bunch. In part because the demo also acts as an update to the original Game Jam version of 3 Verses, a crawler based around typing, poetry, and communication. I gotta admit, I'm kicking myself a little for not trying out this original version of the game sooner. I truly love how it looks. A grotesquely beautiful mashup of the cult PS1 game Germs with the maximalist texture work found in early 2000s Russian Counter-Strike maps. Your goal here is to seek out the titular 3 verses, which you'll mostly accomplish by speaking with the locals and taking note of keywords. Outside of their utility as puzzle-solving tools, these words will also occasionally grant you spells to use in battle. All of the RPG staples are here: fireballs, lightning strikes, Mach 10. Going into the demo for the successor then, I'd assumed it would be doing more of the same, just on a larger scale, but it's actually going for something a bit more interesting than that. While the basic gist of it is the same, taking note of and repeating specific poetic phrases, there's a lot more humanity to it all. Whereas the characters in the original are just mannequin-shaped vessels for delivering cryptic dialogue, the people here feel much more like, well, people. The meat of the demo involves a little storyline about two women quarreling over fish in a sewer, which you'll naturally resolve through the power of the written word. The way this plays out was unexpectedly sweet, in a way that feels more meaningfully engaged with the theme of poetry than the somewhat random solutions in the first game. As a reward for reuniting the couple, they give you a floppy disk with a translation patch for the game on the computer upstairs, along with a request to search for their missing friend who developed it, Kagi, and tell her that they love her. Finding her involves beating this dice game that looks straight out of a mid-90s bargain bin in Japan, and while I have no idea how this game actually works, I managed to fumble my way through it and find Kagi next door, who ends the demo with a pretty effective hook. 3 VERSES³ is a really lovely game that I'm looking forward to playing more of. In each volume of the Next Fest demo disc, I make sure to include at least one game with little to no buzz that I try on a whim that makes a huge impression on me. One that I have to pry myself away from in order to actually work on the video. Blood Facsimile, from developer Renee McCarthy, is an immersive sim that is bizarre and enigmatic down to its very bones, and I absolutely love it. From minute one, there's such a strange mix of ideas. The installation of the Video Dream software into your brain, an apparent punishment for an unspecified crime, before awakening in The Life Simulacrum. Screen transitions are presented with curtains closing and opening, along with frequent reference to the general concept of plays. Actually, these curtains sit at the sides of the screen the entire time, presenting the game in a 4:3 ratio, while also adding this weird extra layer between you and the screen. It's a really cool effect. After exiting your Matrix birthing pod, you're warmly welcomed to a room that looks more Super Mario 64 than it does Deus Ex, featuring tutorializing question blocks and shining star imagery. This comparison is more than skin deep though, because Blood Facsimile is even structured similarly to Mario 64. In addition to acting as a crash course for the genre staple activities like sneaking around and vent crawling, this hub area also connects to the game's individual stages, represented by paintings that you your way into. And it doesn't end there, because each of these stages has a set number of stars to collect, which you'll use to unlock doors to new areas. I've always loved the exploration element of immersive sims, and this odd-on-paper mashup works surprisingly well as a way of turning exploring into the game's primary goal. Entering a new area and spotting a star floating between two buildings instantly had me wondering just how the hell I'd even get up there. Anyone carrying a gun will shoot you on sight, but you can speak with unarmed civilians who will occasionally offer up some kind of hint, but often just have some amusingly cryptic anecdote for you. These ATM-looking terminals allow you to activate brain sync upgrades, which are hidden throughout the stages, granting you powers like bullet time or a double jump. If you are spotted, combat is fast and brutal. You can only take a few hits before dying, and even a small bit of damage will send you into sync loss, requiring you to lasso up a bunch of digital horses mid-combat to get your sync level back in check. But despite the David Lynch presents Cruelty Squad aesthetics of Blood Facsimile, there's a video gamey playfulness to it that feels like a breath of fresh air in the genre. Low on health? Smash the shit out of that Diet Coke button and go to town for free. Even when you do die, you can just restock your ammo back on the training course and bring it all back into the stage with you. My favorite bit of the demo was trying to reach the aforementioned star between these two tall buildings. My newly installed double jump wasn't quite enough to reach the top floor of the office, but I was able to improvise a little boost for myself, only to realize I still couldn't get to the rooftop. I stopped recording here unfortunately, but I was actually able to bring another office chair out to the side of the building and boost myself up onto these AC units and get to the top. Is this the intended method to reach this star? I have no idea, but I love that they let me do it either way. It's hard for a game to strike a balance between being enjoyably obtuse and frustratingly obtuse, but I'm very excited to work out the quirks of Blood Facsimile's full release. CICADAMATA from developer Flower Garden is a game that just absolutely oozes style. In my notes for the demo, I wrote, "This is a future-ass game. This is a the kids are alright game. This will make certain types of people crazy, positive connotation. It knows how to pace things out too." It opens with a more simplistic, nearly grayscale menu and world for the tutorial, but you can feel what's coming. The way your feet heavily ka-clunk as you walk around, the flowy sense of movement, and the speed with which you dash and ground pound. These lines of text start showing up at the end, and you just know it's about to pop off.
Obligations no longer bind you. This is who you are now. Proceed. Tear flesh from bone.
But hang on a second. Stomping on enemies, using your shadow to determine your position, the white rabbit, collecting these yellow cores? I can't believe it took our society this long, but we've finally done it. The jumping flash-like is here, and she's got a gun. Stages play out similarly to that game, where you'll need to collect a set number of cores before proceeding to the exit, destroying enemies for points along the way. Though CICADAMATA is much more concerned with how fast you're able to do it all, and even just in this demo version, I found myself restarting stages to see if I could do them faster. This is one of those games that sort of speaks for itself. You don't need me to convince you of how cool this looks and sounds, just go play it, it rules.
Don't let up, Cicada. You are 50%.
Back in 2020, I picked up a tabletop RPG called MÖRK, a Swedish dark fantasy game with a sort of Dark Souls-y, doom metal-y theme and sketchy black and white art, occasionally punctuated by bold colors. MÖRK Heresy Supreme from developer Morbidware is an attempt to adapt this stylish world into a video game, and I think they did a great job, despite a few admittedly rough first impressions. Upon starting a new game, you'll have a character with random traits rolled for you. This includes the usual stats and quirks, but also your appearance and backstory. I love how little control you have over these things, but it's definitely a bit strange that I have seemingly no way to see what illiterate or bruiser do, or explanations of my stats for that matter. After receiving a starting quest from this nice lady and her lamb, we can wander around town, accept more quests, or buy gear before heading out on our first run. While the game is presented in a horizontal, side-scrolling fashion, the map is laid out akin to something like The Binding of Isaac, where each screen acts as a room for combat or non-combat encounters, and has 1 to 4 exits in each cardinal direction. Because most of the actual movement is horizontal and the north and south doors are just a button press, I found it hard to remember how many screens I traveled in those directions. Not to mention, it's very easy to miss south-facing doors in particular, so I ended up on the map screen more often than feels intended. Combat and item usage are also quite clunky, involving a Tears of the Kingdom style system of holding a D-pad direction and using the right stick to cycle through items. Attacking enemies with your weapon is relatively straightforward, involving a simple light and heavy attack system, but the whole thing feels a bit like a Flash game, and I mean that in both a positive and negative way. So, why am I even covering this game then, after I've mostly just complained? Well, honestly, the game kinda owns. For as clunky as the combat is, when the sludge riffs start kicking in, it just clicks. It's a fight of clumsy, heavy hits and desperation. You don't even die if you hit 0 HP. If you can bash in the skull of whoever brought you down, you'll get right back up, albeit covered in blood. Your archer's all out of arrows? Just start throwing shit, dude. MÖRK is a game that will overwhelm you and explain little, and it just wants you to roll with it, pun intended. And in the spirit of tabletop RPGs, sometimes losing a roll just makes your bloody victory all the sweeter. By the time I'd reached the final boss, I'd picked up an archer and a mage, and we fumbled our way through it in a way that felt equally ridiculous and badass. If you're someone who's willing to put up with a little weirdness in design, and especially if the aesthetic interests you, I think you'll have a great time here. Another game utilizing the faux operating system presentation style, albeit with much more explicitly horror-themed intentions, is Grey Alien Games' Forbidden Solitaire. After finding a copy of the titular card game at a thrift store, our player character excitedly boots up their knockoff Windows PC to shoot off some braggy text to their sister Emily before firing up the game itself. It's easy to understand Emily's jealousy. This game looks absolutely sick. There's a great commitment to the late 90s bit here, with suitably crunchy cutscenes, heavily aliased objects over pre-rendered backgrounds, and a UI that borrows more than a little bit from the first two Diablo games. It's fun stuff. The card game itself is fun too. I've never been able to get into Solitaire, and frankly, it's been so long since I've tried that I don't think I could tell you how it works traditionally. But the basic concept of this forbidden version is simply to remove cards from the board by matching the card in your hand with cards that are valued one higher or one lower. Just as you start to forget about that whole modern operating system layer to the game, you receive a message from Emily, who lets you know she was able to dig up some info on Forbidden Solitaire, and even sends you an old news report about it.
The game includes graphic scenes involving eye gouging, impalement, bloody rituals, and more.
There's no reason for it to be this violent. It's fucking Solitaire!
Yeah, why is it so violent? Well, the other major gameplay twist here is that we're actually fighting to the death against grotesque monstrosities, and much of the strategy of the game lies in building combos by removing cards without drawing a new one, increasing the damage of your attacks. For how simple the game is at the start, it's impressive just how many new mechanics are introduced by the end. There's a shop where you can buy cards with unique effects, as well as jewels with passive abilities that you jam into your hand. Enemies have abilities of their own that grow increasingly complex as you progress, and the last boss kinda whooped my butt the first time around. It's hard for a card game to stand out at this point, given the sheer amount of them out there, but I think Forbidden Solitaire is definitely one to watch, especially if you're into the whole found horror thing that it's going for. Luna Abyss from developer Quali Labs is an FPS, kinda, wherein you'll take on the role of a prisoner named Fox, tasked with the navigation of a gorgeously moody megastructure, in the vein of Tsutomu Nihei's Blam.
You have been chosen to inherit that world.
I say kinda because aiming is sort of secondary here thanks to a lock-on mechanic, an inclusion that I found a bit strange at first. The first couple of combat encounters are pretty easy if you don't use it, and straight up trivial if you do. The trick of Luna Abyss though is that it's not aiming you need to worry about, but moving, because by the end of the demo, you'll be descending straight into bullet heck. Each of the game's guns are as much tools as they are weapons. Your starting rifle acts as a method of opening doors and operating switches, and energy shields that block your path or fortify enemies can be dissipated with a shotgun blast. Between encounters, I'd regularly find myself stopping to take in the sights, but as much as I appreciate the visuals on display here, I did start to worry whether these somewhat samey locations could sustain an entire game. Fortunately, the demo is actually split into two portions, with the second taking place further into the game and in a vastly different but equally cool environment. And this is where Luna Abyss really sunk its hooks into me. The combat here is more fierce, you're given some new movement tools, and some of the weirder elements of the setting start showing up. A little ways in, you're able to possess what I initially thought was a big mech, but once I climbed out, I realized it was some kind of mutated emo kid with guns attached. It's wild stuff. There's a few things like this in both parts of the demo actually, not to mention the question of why Fox looks and sounds so different in the second half. I couldn't quite manage to take out the final boss, but I'm excited to go back for some more attempts when the full game comes out. This was probably the hardest demo disc to narrow down my selections for yet, and as much as I wish I could give every game a full write-up, I want to finish this while the next fest is still fresh. So to close things out, I've included a bonus round of demos that I wasn't able to cover in full, but are still worth checking out. The short but sweet demo for Subjectivation really impressed me. Despite taking place within an ice-cold dream world, there's a really cool physicality to it all. Your dream journal is clearly a photo of a real notebook held by your photoreal hands, with documents that feel convincingly paper-printed, and you'll need your lighter equipped to be able to read them. Wandering the halls or taking hits from the frigid roaming monsters will cause you to become progressively more frozen, so you'll want to learn the layout of the bunker-like structure and where to warm up when necessary. There's some really striking visuals here, and I'm itching to see where the game is going with its strange characters and alternating dreaming and waking world. Hypnostasis is a cry of fear-like that I found myself extremely charmed by. It wears its inspirations heavily on its sleeve and is far from subtle, but I ended up putting well over an hour into this demo, and I'm honestly not even sure if I'm near the end. But I'm absolutely going back to it when this video is finished. Saint of Chains is somehow the second Cry of Fear-like that I played this next fest, and is definitely the more polished of the two, and probably a little bit easier to recommend because of it. There's a lot of really neat visuals here, and they did a great job capturing the specific type of freakiness-enhancing jank that you associate with Cry of Fear's enemies. Petrichor is a funny and stylish RPG Maker game about a bear cub named Jobert who's just trying to find somewhere to purchase a houseplant, but keeps getting interrupted by his weird family and the monsters that have invaded his small village. I love you, Jobert.
Okay.
I'm not even sure how to describe Skyworld 64. It's a very cute, if somewhat scrungly little game. It plays like a survival crafting game that's been stripped down so much that it feels more like an incremental game. It's definitely one of those, I can't explain it but I kinda love it little gems. I've always been drawn to games about doing little jobs. Despite falling squarely into the little job genre, I almost passed over Wax Heads, thinking it might be a little too twee for my taste, but I'm glad I gave it a shot, because this record shop employee simulator is just really nice and does a good job at distilling the pleasant bits about working retail while filtering out the soul-crushing ones. I saw a post in the Steam discussion page for Besmirch that said something to the effect of, "Wow, it's just like Faith." And I sort of smugly rolled my eyes, but no, they were right, and the game isn't shy about it. A pretty wild mashup of horror and farming life sim, and it works shockingly well from what I've played so far. Cursed Words probably would have made the cut for the main list, but I actually watched someone else play and didn't have time to capture much footage of it. What starts as a pretty simple run-based take on Boggle, stringing a random set of letters together to form words for points, eventually becomes a mess of colors, numbers, chess pieces, and even mahjong tiles. Really cool game. Underkeep is a relatively straightforward, maybe even slightly generic dungeon crawler that I nonetheless found myself coming back to throughout the week. Very good post-dinner, chill on the couch and play on the laptop or Steam Deck kind of game. No Vacation for an Executioner is my certified one for the freaks pick of the demo disc. An absolutely bizarre game that, despite being admittedly somewhat frustrating to play, I found myself enamored with enough to see the whole way through. Like a lost PS2 game that scored a 5 or 6 out of 10 in all the gamer magazines, but 20 years later we all realize it actually owns. Volume is the next game from the developers of Bobdy and Straftat, and features a similar dreary but beautiful brutalist cityscape to explore, though this time with a focus on speed and movement. It's kind of unreal just how good it feels to run around in this game. It's just so natural and flowy, and you have so much control. There's only a couple areas included, but I love taking my time the first time around, and then blasting through on subsequent plays. This comes just as recommended as my main picks. There's just not a lot to say beyond, yeah, it's good. Alrighty, that's about all the time we have for today. I hope you found something here that interests you. If you played anything cool that you think I should know about, feel free to let me know in the comments, but otherwise, I'll see you around. Bye!